Hello and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. Hope today is treating all of you very well. There are some things I kind of just wanted to get out in the air, kind of just speak about before we get into this episode. First thing on that agenda is, how's it going? How are you? The phone lines are open. Call in. Let me know how you're feeling. No, I think this is a question that we all kind of have to ask ourselves every now and then. I think kind of every day, maybe check in with ourselves, see how we're doing. So how are you? Have you asked yourself that today? How's it going? How are you feeling? And it's okay to not feel okay. In the beginning of the show, I always hope that, your day is going well or that you're doing well, but, that's just a hope. It's not necessarily what the case is, and recognize what you're feeling and acknowledge what you're feeling and value what you're feeling and know that's okay. And, yeah, it's just good to check in with yourself and make sure that you know how you're feeling and how you're doing, because that's when you have more control over the situation. But, that's the question of the day. I think that's the question of every day. How are you feeling? And, take the time to ask yourself that question, whether you want to pause this podcast now and check in with yourself, or maybe you want to keep the podcast running and check in with yourself and just not listen to what I'm saying. But either way, check in with yourself. It's always good to do. It's been a pretty eventful few weeks this past time. I've been working on a project, the project that got my fingers cut with the power saw. Well, my recklessness got my fingers cut with the power saw, but that project is coming to a close, and it's kind of just, it's opened up a few different realizations for me. First off, that I don't want to do a project like this again, as far as just the way that I went about it. I think there were definitely some things that I could have done differently, or kind of just maybe more efficiently. And I think that, like, as I started gaining more motivation in myself, which is the second thing within this project manifestation as it was finished, is the realization that I am able to create the things that I imagine. The things that I want to create for myself, I can create that. And I believe that this is something that all of us have the power to do. Once we realize that we have the power to truly create the things that we imagine for ourselves, then it's very empowering. So in that empowerment, I started to realize that, there are certain things that maybe I could have done differently through this project, things that I could have, been a little bit more motivated within myself to embark on, that could have made this project run a little more smoothly. But, all those realizations aren't anything that I'm regretful of as far as the project's completion, because all that led to me having this realization. And, I think as we go through life, that realization of, just having that power to create the things that we want, it can drive us to so many different places in life. So if you have a project or just something that you've been kind of putting off, whether even if it's just like painting a room or something like that, like, just, embark on that journey. If it's a day project, a weekend project, whatever it is, because you'll be happy that you did it. You'll be proud of yourself that you're the one that did it, and you'll bring more courage to yourself and more knowledge of the strength that you have to complete projects. And I mean, these are all things that are like small steps, and I spoke about in the last episode, the little follow-up episode, about how the things that we do, they're all just a culmination of small steps. And as you do each of those small steps, it brings you more empowerment and brings you more strength, knowing that you can take that next step and that it'll be okay and that you won't fall down. And, even if you do fall down, you can get back up and take another step. So that's just something that comes out of that realization. And, I think I'm just kind of grateful that the project is kind of over with, but it does open a lot of new avenues of just, what else can be created? What else can I create? And, that's just, the sky's the limit in that domain. And, I think many of us may have been aware of the the winter solstice. I'm already ahead of myself, but the winter solstice that just happened on the 21st. And, that's something that was apparently very significant because Jupiter and Saturn aligned in this way. And apparently, I guess, the planets all align, I guess, or they align every 20 years or something like that. Every 20 years, Jupiter and Saturn aligns, but it's every 400 years that they align as close as they did to Earth as they did this time around. I don't know, but it's something that was once in a lifetime, and I missed it, obviously, but it was it's something that was apparently very significant just because Jupiter and Saturn, and I'm not sure if many of you believe in astrology or just, planetary energies and things like that, but apparently Jupiter is, in charge of like getting things done or challenges, and Saturn is in charge of getting things done. I may be mixed up with that, but either way, it's apparently this combination of energetic forces that's supposed to come through, that's supposed to transform us as like people individually, like, and as as a people, as a human race. Apparently it's supposed to project us into this new domain of just excited energies, new things, very positive changes that are supposed to be coming about. And I've been feeling, just without even knowing all this information, I've been feeling just a shift in myself, a change in just how I want to be and how I want to present myself in the world. And part of that is this project and the encouragement that's come from that, and the realization of the strength that I have to create those things. But also just in a realization that there is a part of me that's always been there. And I think that it's a driving force. It's something that is more whole and more complete to who I am, and it carries more, I think, strength and character of I don't know, just what I feel in myself. And I'm not really sure of the words to describe it, because it's something that's happening within me. And of course we all have those feelings of things happening within us that we don't really know how to explain. But either way, um, you know, this is supposed to be a huge change and a huge shift that's happening cosmically and within all of us. So hopefully that's something that is shifting positively for you. And, also just the fact that it was winter solstice, that was the darkest day of the year, the shortest day light of the year. So every day after that is going to get progressively longer. So that's going to be, awesome for people like me who love the sunlight. So yeah, that's basically that. There was, I mean, I spoke in the last episode about just trying to get better at social media posts and posting things, and it was basically a week since I posted anything. So I apologize about that. I guess I shouldn't make promises about making social media posts if I can't really keep them, but I'm gonna kind of get better at doing that. I've again completed this project that's been consuming my time, and I think that just helps to kind of engage more in that social media aspect. So that's going to be happening. Expect more guests on the show. I know that I haven't had guests on the show in a while, but things have been kind of crazy, I guess, with COVID and, people just trying to get their shit together in life. So, expect more guests. I'm going to just try to get more guests going on. I have some in the works already, some people wanting to be on the show, surprisingly, but that's all going to be coming down the line. And yeah, it's all good things, hopefully, are going to be, coming forward. The holidays are coming up. Hopefully that's going to be something good for you. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to get going with this episode. Here's the box here. I've gotten some really amazing topics. I mean, like some really, really good topics. I'm excited for the box episode when I can actually speak about those topics, but really great topics. Thank you for sending those in. If you have any topic ideas or thoughts or anything, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com or any of the social media pages that I will link at the end of this episode. But the box with all your topics in, I'm going to be drawing out of right now, as you can hear. But yeah, really, really great topic. There was one that had me really thinking the other day. I forgot which one it was, but yeah, really great topics. Thanks for sending those in. Always very, very appreciated. And the topic that was just drawn was change. And I could have swore we had this topic, and now that I'm thinking about it, we actually haven't had this topic. But what a big topic. I mean, change. I'm constantly speaking about change, the change that we experience. I mean, we all know that we experience change. We see change before our very eyes as we see the seasons change, as we feel the weather change. Change is constant. So I think this is something that's going to be an amazing topic, and probably just a lot within it. So not really sure how I'm going to go about it, but it's what's next week. So change, that's going to be an amazing topic. This week is toxic positivity, and I'm going to go right into this because I think that there's definitely a lot with this. And I think there's so much with this idea of toxic positivity because we kind of live in this culture where we are kind of bombarded with this idea of needing to stay positive, needing to kind of live this kind of happy life, and that's just something that's not really realistic towards the actual human experience that we have. So toxic positivity was something that was actually a new term for me when I didn't really realize what it was when it was brought to me as a topic, and it caused me to obviously do some research on what that was exactly. And it's something that many of us experience, many of us have seen, many of us have probably even done before to other people. And this is the definition that I got offline, and of course there are many different definitions because this is more of a an idea, like a conceptual idea that we all experience, but it's not something I think has a solid definition. This is a definition that I've seen used across many different articles and things, but toxic positivity is described as an insincere positivity that leads to harm, needless suffering, or misunderstanding. And like the needless suffering part was something that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, I feel like that's kind of excessive. But as I started doing more reading and, kind of conceptualizing on my own, I started realizing that a lot of that suffering is needless suffering. And a lot of it is caused because of this toxic positivity that's being kind of put into our lives constantly. And, I think that it's something that it's really unfortunate because there are just positive people. People try to, not see their friends in a bad place, not see their family in a bad place. Like they want to just make that situation okay. However that may look. They want to make that situation look okay. And in doing so, it's dismissing the very real fact that that person is dealing with something. That person is going through something that's not going to be easily swept away with some kind of platitude as, everything's going to be all right, it's all in your head, everything happens for a reason. And these are often things that, many of us may have heard before. But these are things that, we've told people or have heard from other people, and it's not something that actually wants to be heard, Although it's not something that maybe wants to be felt, of course we want to feel okay. We want to feel, happy and fine and positive. But at the end of the day, there are emotions and there are life circumstances that lead us to not always feel that way. And that's something that needs to be recognized. And as we go into the world and as we start interacting with people, we have to realize that if we are putting these kind of insincere platitudes on people, kind of saying that, like everything's going to be okay, it's dismissing, again, the feeling that they're having, the actual emotion that they're having. And it's not only just attacking that emotion itself, it's attacking like the actual human experience in general. Like we as humans are dynamic. We're not just happy people, like we're not just in a society of just like positivity and happiness all the time. And that's something that needs to be understood, is that, just as we have sunshine and laughter, we also have darkness and sadness. And that's something that we all have to recognize, and something that gets swept away or dismissed as we start kind of over prioritizing this, overly positive society that we kind of live in. And it's something that, like we see it all across social media, where it's like there's just a lot of posts of just happiness and, love and, like just sunshine and mimosas on the fucking beach. And, like, of course, that's all amazing, but that's not the life that everyone lives daily. And of course, like that's the stuff that people want to post because that's stuff that I guess are more agreeable towards what people want to see. But at the end of the day, it's not realistic towards who we are as people. And I guess we have to ask ourselves, does that do us a justice? Posting things that are, strictly positive or strictly towards the aesthetics that are in life. And of course, I really attribute a lot of those things to being aesthetics, like even the idea of just a positive attitude in so many ways, where it's like that can also be an aesthetic, a mask that many people wear because of, again, this cultural society that we live in that deems something negative or some kind of a negative emotion to be a bad thing. And it's up to us to start to shift that by realizing that it's okay to feel bad, and it's okay to not be in a good mood all the time. And there are so many things within social media that, like are kind of insidious in some ways, because as I was reading, there was an article that I was reading that was speaking about this idea of social media and how toxic positivity kind of goes and creeps in different ways in social media. So of course we see the profiles that, like in their bios or in some kind of hashtag, it's like positive vibes only or whatever it may be. And it's just like, of course, like this kind of weird thing where it's like the person looking at that photo may not be in a positive vibe, but and it's also very exclusive where it's like positive vibes only. It's like, okay, don't come here if you're not feeling positive vibes. That's causing other people to stuff down emotions or to completely be dismissive of the things that they're feeling or feel as though they're not being heard or understood. So these kind of profiles and things that we start putting out there, these hashtags that are going towards more of this like blind optimism, is something that's actually doing more destruction towards that realization of, like this human experience that we all have. Something else that was kind of interesting about this idea of social media and the toxic positivity that goes through there was something that this article mentioned, where it's like, and this is something that we've all experienced before, I've seen before. It's those posts that say, repost if you care, or like and share if you ever cared about me, or something like that. And it was very interesting because I've seen a lot of posts like that, but then I didn't really think about that as positivity, because a lot of times I feel as though that's a more of a longing for connection in some kind of way. But as I started reading more about this, it is kind of that idea of toxic positivity, where it's like everyone cares differently, just like everyone feels differently. So to say that, like, in order for me to show that I care about you, I have to like this and repost it, then, like, that's not, like, that's not really how I show that I care. And just like, the way that I show that I'm, feeling something, it's not going to be by dismissing it by saying positive vibes only. It's by feeling it. So it's like we feel differently, we also care differently. So, like, there are a lot of posts that we do, and maybe we've seen that kind of exacerbate this toxic positivity and this idea of toxic positivity as we think about it in terms of social media. And of course, this is something that not many of us do intentionally. I've definitely caught myself in situations where I've said something where it's like, oh yeah, everything happens for a reason, or, some kind of statement where it's like it maybe was dismissing what that person was feeling in that situation. And it's not something that we do intentionally, but something that once we recognize it, we have to, realize that that's not something that everyone else is feeling, that everyone's not in the same place that we are. And as I was experiencing, all of us experiencing COVID, this was something that, I also recognized. And it wasn't something that I recognized until it was like kind of after the fact, but that my feelings of being okay was not something that was felt by everyone that was around me. And of course, I guess, like, just my personality, I love being around people, I love socializing, things like that, but I also am okay with being by myself. I can be myself for long periods of time and I'd be okay. Now, of course, after a while, I'd probably miss people and want to see people, but, in the beginning, it's not very difficult for me. So when COVID started and, social distancing started and, lockdown was a big thing, it didn't really bother me. Spring was happening, summer was happening. I was in good moods. I was working out. I was, this podcast was like in the beginning phases of its, infancy and things like that. And, I was just like, I was in a energetic mood. The sun was shining more. I was, going out on hikes more, and I felt really good. And I think that part of that blinded me to the recognition that other people were not feeling that way. And I think that as we get in certain ways where it's like we may be more okay in certain situations than other people are. And once we recognize that, I think that's where we kind of have that responsibility to acknowledge that someone else isn't in that space and that we can't push that positivity on other people. And I think that also in reverse, the same thing is kind of true, where it's like, if we are not in a good mood, if we're not in, the best mood, everyone else doesn't have to be in a bad mood also. Because I've definitely been in situations where I was like, upset, and then there's someone else that's just cheery as fuck, and I'm like, why are you so happy? Like, obviously not saying this to them or anything like that, but just like in my head, maybe something just like it really aggravated me, and I'm like, why are you so happy? Like, tone it down, and it's just like something that would kind of just get to me, where it's like I realize I'm like, why am I, first off, I have to realize, I'm like, why am I so angry at the fact that this other person is so happy? And that's something that, like, I guess I do pretty often, where it's like anytime that I feel any kind of discord in any kind of way, it doesn't have to be anger, it can be like any kind of negative feeling that's, or like bad feeling, I'd say, not necessarily negative, but bad feeling that I'm feeling towards someone else's way of being, then I have to, like, obviously check myself, and it's like, why is this bothering me so much? Like, why does this person's difference in the way that they're feeling affect me in this way? And I think that as we kind of go through our experiences, we can also realize that we can be in a place that's, not the best place, and everyone around us doesn't have to be in that same place. But, I think it's more or less of a valuing on both sides of just, the human experience, because, just as we have to recognize that there are people that are dealing with things, we also have to recognize that there are people that are maybe okay. But the biggest thing about toxic positivity is that it's not something that just influences others, it influences us. As we go through this world where it's like there's this positive vibes only type of atmosphere, it's again dismissing the things that we're feeling. So individuals are feeling things and then also feeling bad for feeling those things. That's why there's, like a lot of sayings, it's okay to not be okay. Because there's a lot of this weird type of culture going around where it's like people feel bad for feeling bad. And that's like something that it's like it's compounding. It's kind of like having a wound and then putting your finger in the wound, pressing it more. Because it's like we understand that we have a wound, and now we feel so bad that we have the wound that we're just going to keep on like creating more pain because we realize that, like we're experiencing pain. I think that it's the craziest thing that we continue to perpetuate this idea of just everything being all right, knowing that each and every person is also dealing with something. It's almost as if we're keeping alive something that's inherently, non-existent, and kind of just continue to perpetuate that in so many different ways. And I'm not sure if many of you have seen like the little meme or the picture of, it's like the dog in the burning house, and he says this is okay, or like this is fine, and it's like the house is burning around him and he's just like sitting at the table and everything is burning down. And I think that's kind of this idea of toxic positivity where it's like if you are letting yourself burn down within and just saying like this is fine, it's going to catch up to you. Like you are going to get burned. The house may be on fire now and you may be okay sitting at your little table not on fire, but eventually, like those support beams are going to come down, that fire is going to hit you, the heat's going to hit you, and you're going to start burning yourself. And I think that like as we think about this idea of toxic positivity, we also have to think about it as that idea of a burning building, where it's like within ourselves, if you are not okay, that is the fire that needs to be put out. But it can't be put out if we are continually saying this is fine and turning the other way. Put out that fire by looking at it, by recognizing it, by tending to it. Take buckets of water and throw it on the fire. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It's really doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. And as we realize that we deal with things and we are not always happy, we can take that to other people. We can realize that maybe this other person, no matter how positive their demeanor is, they may be dealing with things. And the only thing that we need to have is that understanding, that recognition. Because that's what stops the spread of, toxic positivity. Because although, again, we all want to be maybe feeling okay, maybe we don't want to feel, upset or sad or whatever it may be. But those are real feelings that we have to recognize and we have to understand are part of, again, the human experience. So there's obviously a healthy positivity as well. And that's the positivity that's, it acknowledges the fact that someone is dealing with something. And it's creating space for that to be heard, be understood, and be felt. And that's what allows us to grow. That's what allows us to kind of be with one another and process those things. And even if you're with yourself, be kind to yourself. Understand that like it's okay to feel that. Give that space to yourself. Give that compassion to yourself. And that's positivity in itself. Like allowing that space, allowing that nurturing and caring space to take care of yourself, that is positivity. That is a way of creating positivity in a different way. It's nurturing positivity. It's healing positivity. It's the positivity that allows us to get to a better place. And there's something that was said, and it's apparently an improv strategy or something, but it's called yes and. It's like a yes and strategy. And this is something where it's like it's more of a, I guess, a personal work type of thing where it's like, I've seen this work in different domains as far as in therapy, but, this was something that was interesting to see in an article. But it was a yes and strategy, and apparently this is more or less like a strategy where it's like, yes, I am scared and worried about the things that are happening in the world, and I feel very fortunate to still have my family and friends around me. And of course, this is, it's the recognition that, yes, I'm dealing with something and it's very hard. It's very difficult. But there's also this part of me that recognizes that there are other things that are going on as well. And sometimes that part gets overshadowed by like the negativity that's being consumed in my mind. So as we do this yes and strategy, it apparently moves us to a place where it's like we're recognizing the negativity, but we're also compounding it with something that we also recognize is beneficial in the world. There's a show called Euphoria that I was watching recently, and I think in the final episode or the last two episodes, it was one of the main characters was kind of contemplating whether or not they like were struggling with bipolar. And something that was mentioned that I thought was like so profound was that the character had mentioned that, in times of depression, extreme depression and sadness, there's, a point in which, the negativity, the negative thoughts are all consuming, and all the things that brought you laughter, all the things that brought you, good feelings of happiness and everything, all of that just dissipates. It becomes nothing. And the only thing that becomes life is the compounding negative experiences. So, I mean, of course, like, I'm not saying that this yes and strategy is going to, dismantle depression at its core, but I'm saying that it's a strategy that kind of helps to give life and keep life to the positive moments that we experience in life. And, the ones that are easily overshadowed by the darkness and the sadness that we often experience in different moments in our lives. So, find a healthy balance of positivity, not only with yourself, but with those around you. Know that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. Know that it's okay to feel things within yourself, and that other people are also feeling those things. And that as we go through life, connecting with others and trying to be there for others, we can gain so much strength in understanding moving into the next situation as we confront other individuals and as we kind of deal with ourselves as we go through different experiences and feelings through our life. So that's all I really have for this episode. Hope it was something that was, interesting, or maybe towards the lines of what the person was looking for with that. But yeah, that's all I got. If you have any thoughts or ideas or anything that you'd like to share, you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can join the Instagram page at everything.sunpodcast, or you can join the Twitter page at everysunpodcast, and the Facebook group, Everything Under the Sun with Ty. And that's all I got. Love you all. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.